I'm Timothy Jordan.
And I'm Emily Fortuna. Our next guest is a real pioneer, an engineer, physician, and NASA astronaut, Dr. Mae C. Jemison. What an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's exciting to be here today as well. It's a beautiful sunny day.
It is.
Definitely, very bright. You've had an extremely impressive career spanning so many different fields. What do you see as the through lines throughout all of these different fields?
So when I think about the things that I've done from, having been a chemical engineer and a medical doctor, and then an astronaut, and then as soon as I left NASA, I started an international science camp called the Earth We Share. It's an environmental studies professor, 100-year starship. Throughout them is the idea that we're connected, right? And how do we use our technological prowess, our resources, to help better the world writ large? And I know that sounds kind of Pollyannish, but my revelation as I've grown up, as I've looked around the world, as I've lived different places, it's that, this planet has incredible resources, but they're finite. The resources include people and their talents that exist everywhere in the world. It includes, our plant life, our animal life, not just, the things you can dig up out of the ground. And we have to protect those, and we also have to understand that we share them. And if I go a little bit further, it's like pushing the envelope, not being satisfied with, this is complacent. I always have to challenge myself. And perhaps I push, and grab on things that are really different or difficult, but for me, the energy comes with trying something that I don't know that I can absolutely accomplish it, that it's going to require something new for me, that it's going to require me to grow.
Awesome.
During your presentation here, you spoke about your 100-year Starship initiative. And to introduce it, and I love this, you spoke about how Mars is too close. Why is that, and why should we set our sights further out?
So I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. When I was growing up, I assumed that by the time I became an astronaut, right? I actually didn't even want to be an astronaut. I just assumed I'd go into space. But that I'd be going to Mars or one of the moons around Jupiter or Saturn or something. That's what I thought, because we had all these things that were happening. In fact, we had probes on Mars when I was a little kid. So of course we'll be doing something more. The reason I talk about 100-year Starship from the perspective of it's more audacious than Mars is because Mars doesn't push us hard enough. We've been on Mars multiple times. We've got Mars addressed, right? We can figure out the technological timeline to do Mars, the technologies that are needed. The reason we haven't gone to Mars is not so much an engineering challenge, it's a public commitment. But what's gonna really push us is thinking about interstellar, which also captures our imagination. That doesn't mean that we don't do Mars. It means let's do something that's big and audacious and keep that in our eyesight. So 100-year Starship was seed funded by DARPA to make sure we have the capabilities for human interstellar flight. But the real underlying current there is innovation. How do we get the radical leaps in knowledge, in technologies, in human systems that would, allow us to go to another star system? No, that's the real piece. Because each one of those challenges that we meet can be applied to life here on Earth right today. You can't go to another star system with humans using the kind of energy systems we have today for space exploration. The chemical rockets and propulsion and stuff. We're going to have to generate tremendous amounts of energy through either a fission, where you break an atom apart, fusion, like which powers the sun, or antimatter. We do fission now, but it's not well contained. We don't know how to control it, store it. Imagine if we could just learn how to store this. What tremendous value it would have for life here on Earth. When you think about going to another star system, you have to be autonomous. So you have to carry your food with you, because if you get to going fast enough, it's a hard journey. But if you get to going fast enough so that it's reasonable within human lifetimes, you're going to have to carry everything with you. You're going to have to learn how to grow your food, your medical systems. And right now, when we're on Earth, we rely on this wonderful biodiversity of the soil, right? The microbiome in the soil and all of those things to grow food. We need to understand that. We need to know how to keep it healthy. need to take that with us. And so there are all these pieces, financial infrastructures, we have to change to be able to do something that's long term. And if you stop and think about that, those are all things we need to survive on this planet.
Space exploration seems inevitable with the requisite what you call Team Earthlings. But at the same time, it seems like we could be moving faster. What do you think is holding us back?
And I think it's public commitment. It's really, we haven't included people. And so folks don't see how, space technology impacts their day-to-day lives, even though it does. I live in Houston, Texas. We track hurricanes, right? And that's what we know about. We knew about the ozone, the hole in the ozone from, space information and data. So it's constantly and pervasive in our lives, but we haven't told the story very well. And when I say we, that's, I guess, the royal we about space folks, right? And you tell the story better by having people involved. What was riveting people when Mars landed? That they could, the Mars lander, remember everybody was looking and cheering? It's because they could see it, they could be a part of it. And I think that's the piece. And I think that's the piece with all science and technology. When it's accessible and when people understand that it's part of their lives and it's not this mysterious thing.
And they're energized and excited towards working towards that goal,
And I think one of the things that, that space offices and also other technology innovations offer us is that we get to do bigger things. And I think people they like an adrenaline rush, but wouldn't we like to do good things with adrenaline rush? Right now we manufacture adrenaline rushes in ways that are not necessarily so productive. There you go.
Sure. How does this relate to your theme of Look Up and the Skyfi app that you produced?
So Look Up came from 100-Year Starship, and we wanted to connect people with space, and we also wanted to deal with the issue of human behavior. How do we get the best out of us? And we thought, let's ask people to go out and look up. Like, when was the last time you looked up? Remember as a kid looking up at the clouds, and it just made you feel good, right? And then I remember as a child thinking that, there are other children on the other side of the planet who are looking up as well. And what do they see? I know they see the same moon. In some instances, they see slightly different stars, but we're all, it was just one of those connecting things. And so we started to work on how do we create a campaign where one day around the world we'd all look up. And so, of course, we had to make an app for that, right? And that's where the Skyfi app came in. So Sky Selfie. And the idea is to take an image, a video, a text, or whatever. When you look up, what does it make you feel? Post it, and we would put it on a globe that you can twirl around and you can see what everyone else is doing, and it's time tagged and data tagged to where you are, and you get to see what other people are looking at. Where we came up with is that we want to do different events, right? So we started on October 18th, one day. I'm proud to say we trended number 5 on Google, which is great, but in one day we're able to garner lots of enthusiasm and support around the world. Of course, it took a lot of work to build up to that, right? Sure. And now we're continuing to work on it, and we're going to do one also around the 50th anniversary of the lunar landing. So I'd like everybody to can I do this? Sure. The Skyfi app is completely free, right? No in-app purchases. I know that's like, what is wrong with her? No, because we want people to connect and use it. And it's available on Google, it's available on iOS systems. And the idea is to really just connect us. And I think, as we were talking before, just the act of looking up from your phone changes your perspective. You get bigger, you look out. Just the act of looking up from your desk or your work, or just, sometimes I'm walking down the street, I'm looking at the ground, right? Looking up, it frees us, it gives us energy.
So I have one more question. And this is on behalf.
Wait. You're gonna blame Timothy?
Timothy asked me to ask this question.
Between the two of us, the biggest Star Trek nerd is probably me.
Okay, shoot.
So I know that Nichelle Nichols is a huge inspiration to you, and I personally believe that representation in media and just in media is super important. And I wanted to ask how you got your guest appearance on Star Trek.
So let me just start off by saying when I was growing up, I loved Star Trek. I was in Los Angeles before I was accepted into the astronaut program. And I used to get my hair cut in LA. And the person who cut my hair was Stefan Demings, who was a hairdresser for all these movies and things like that. And he knew LeVar Burton. And Stefan and I were talking one day, and he said, Mae, would you like to be on, why don't you should be on Star Trek? And I said, really? He said, I'll mention it to LeVar. So he mentioned it to LeVar. I got a call one night. I was at home, and it's like, hey, Mae, this is LeVar Burton. Would you be interested in being on Star Trek? That's what Stefan said. And I was like, yeah, sure. Right? Like, this is when the glasses come off. Yeah, sure. And they wrote a part for me as Lieutenant Palmer.
That's awesome.
And that's what happened. Basically, it was an episode LeVar was directing, and it was really very neat. And I was able to go around and been sort of one of the Star Trek buddies since then, and was even able to help them when they premiered the Star Trek Discovery on back last year in New York.
That's
really
wonderful.
cool.
Yeah, so cool.
All right, before we go, is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers?
Well, all this discussion we're having now is really around science and technology and some of those issues. And it's really important that we understand that, we research science and problems based on the people who are there, their ambitions, their dreams, their goals, their fears. And so it's really important that we have as many people as possible doing that work. We design technology and tools based on the people we are. It's important that we have lots of people involved. And we fail to develop and use so much of the talent in this country. So I spend a lot of my time around science literacy, and I think it's vitally important that every child have an opportunity for an excellent education, that every child is science literate. As adults, that we don't sort of say, oh, I don't know about that, that's not cute, We need to make sure that we're fully engaged, and that's my task, to be inclusive and bring lots of people along.
Hear, hear. Dr. Jemison, thank you so much for joining us on this show today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I get to shake hands. I always shake hands. Thank
Thank
you.
you.